Welcome to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat.
You said that in such a matter-of-fact way.
I did it for fun. I just wanted to, I just wanted, I tried to have so much fun with it for some reason.
I love it so much. So, here we are, Waj. I don't know where we are. I said here we are, and I feel like it's in like the pits of hell or Dante's Inferno or whatever
What circle of hell though? What
what
circle
circle?
of Dante's hell?
5?
Yeah, 5 is good. I felt like 5. I was in a 4 or a 5.
Yeah, I feel like we're in 5. And, I want to start off today with us with an interview that Rachel Maddow gave on The View at the end of June. The women of The View brought her on to talk about the importance of this election and to talk about Project 2025.
He's trying to get rid of the American system of government, and that means getting rid of a government that does anything other than serve him, and that's what Project 2025 is all about. Yeah. And that exists everywhere in the world, and it has never existed here before. And so I really think the bottom line here is that Trump and his movement, they are not running against Democrats. They're running against democracy. Yeah. They're running against the democratic process. They want to radically change the kind of system that we have, the government that we have. Yeah. And we're alive as American citizens in that time, and we're going to be the ones who decide if the American system of government survives or if it's taken over instead by a strongman authoritarian form.
Here we have Rachel Maddow being very clear, because I think that mainstream media, which you and I talk about and lambast on a whole, do not seem to care about the gravity or of the situation that we're in. They are not discussing this election in terms of the crisis that our democracy is in. And she said it very clearly. Donald Trump and the Republican Party are not running against Joe Biden. They are running against democracy. And so when we, you and I and our listeners understand that to be true, when now the big reveal came this week with Donald Trump anointing JD Vance as his running mate. Oh, by the way, what happened to his other running mate? What?
He's hiding for his life.
Yeah. So he unveils his new running mate, and the media takes this as normal. It's a normal convention. This is a normal vice presidential announcement. What do you take from this, given what Rachel Maddow has clearly laid out and you and I clearly lay out every single week?
So first of all, I call it corporate media, not mainstream, because I think more and more we are the mainstream, as people have unfortunately lost their faith in corporate media institutions. And the reason why they've lost their faith in corporate media institutions is this last week. Rachel Maddow should have sent that clip to her bosses at MSNBC. Should have sent it to Cesar Conde and Rashida Jones, I believe, right? Is their last name? Because what happened as a result of Donald Trump's failed assassination attempt, right? Which, by the way, folks, we still don't know anything about the medical diagnosis. We don't know anything about the treatment. We don't know anything about his health because no records have been released. But I digress. Immediately, the Republicans did what we thought they would. They worked the refs. Working the refs is a tactic that they do, always whining and complaining, right? They projected. They said, oh, you all escalated. And I want to remind folks, the people who were escalating it before it was even revealed that it was a 20-year-old white male registered Republican shooter with Trump signs on his lawn, according to his neighbors, right? Who once made a $15 donation to True Blue, but according to his high school friend, he was very conservative, a gun nut, and was also very bullied. And he shot the Donald Trump, the father who was killed, and 2 people were injured with an AR-15. The same AR-15 which friggin' Republicans wore pins of to Congress. Remember that? But I digress. Remember what happened on CNN? Scott Jennings, the human amoeba, before there was any of this evidence, blamed Democrats. What did Wolf Blitzer say? Both sides have to tone it down. And then remember what happened with Lester Holt of NBC News with his one-on-one interview with Joe Biden we're all waiting for. Didn't talk about the policies. Don't you think, Joe Biden, have you reflected and toned down the, because you said in a call that you're going to put Donald Trump in a target, which was very clear that he was going to just, go on offense against Donald Trump's records as manifested in the Detroit rally, which, by the way, Joe Biden didn't call for a violent insurrection. And then Katie Tour of MSNBC. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I saw it, but please tell the people.
Yesterday, oh, it was just, I mean, it's beautiful. On day one, when Donald Trump appeared at the RNC, which we'll talk about, with a giant goofy ass white band-aid covering his entire ear, she was talking to Chris Jensen, right, another MSNBC host, and like, I think hopefully he might change. Yeah, look, he looks pensive. And then Katie Tour said he looks serene. And then she interviewed, of course, Eric Trump, because why not interview Eric Trump, the same man who calls you fake news and says you're the enemy of the people? And then we found out yesterday, as we're recording this on Wednesday, we recall that MSNBC, which the flagship is Morning Joe, they punted Morning Joe on Monday.
Mhm.
And everyone was like, what the F? Why did they punt Morning Joe? And then we found out from Joe and Mika, because they came back on air on Tuesday, that MSNBC lied to them.
Yep.
And said, we're going to have rolling coverage. You're not going to be on. No other show's going to be on. So they're like, okay, they stayed at home. Lo and behold, there was no rolling coverage.
Nope.
Only Morning Joe was punted. So that meant, I'm saying all this because MSNBC, which is supposed to be the quote unquote counter to CNN, which has lost, the plot 2 years ago, Fox News, which we know what it is, it bent the knee in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen corporate media bend the knee. Nobody's asking the questions. They all apologized. Meanwhile, I saw Ron Johnson's speech. Here's a clip.
Today's Democrat agenda, their policies, are a clear and present danger to America, to our institutions, our values, and our people.
That was from opening night. Did they de-escalate? Was there civility? Was there unity? I feel like, Danielle, I've used this analogy on our show. The rest of us, not you and me, but all the institutions, especially corporate media, are Charlie Brown after 10 years. And Lucy is MAGA and Trump. And Charlie Brown says, now, Lucy, you won't lift the football. And Lucy says, I won't. He. And the rest of us are watching. We're like, for the love of God, please don't fall for it. And they fall for it. And we're just sitting here, oh my God, democracy is at stake. We have 4 months left, and they're going to literally pave the road for King Trump's coronation. It drives me nuts. Sorry for my rant, but this has been on my mind for the past week.
But here, I mean, look, it's not a rant because it's the truth of where we are, where we find ourselves with corporate media, and the fact that you more and more, as I am on my social media, as you are, that I am listening to people and reading their tweets and their DMs where they are saying, I don't watch the news anymore.
Yeah.
I have stopped. There is no one to trust. And I think that what MSNBC did on Monday with Morning Joe, and again, I just want to, first of all, I don't like Morning Joe, right? And so I am not like a fan or anything like that. But I will say that the point of privilege that Joe Scarborough and Mika have is one that is wrapped in their whiteness, and for Joe wrapped in his maleness, where he can say on air, if they ever do this again, I will quit.
Yeah,
right?
He said that on Monday.
And he said that on Monday, and I believed him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is their flagship show, right? Rachel Maddow used to be their flagship and went down to 1 day a week, right? And so with Joe Scarborough saying, if you ever do this again, meaning lie directly to us and tell us that you are going to be having rolling coverage, but come to find out we're the only show that was canceled, and come to find out that we're the ones that were canceled because you were afraid of what we might say.
Yep.
And, here's what, Jason Stanley, author, has said, which is that you do not bow to authoritarianism in advance. It is not going to save you. And so the very idea that you have the Katie Turs of the world, which, by the way, shout out to fucking Nancy Pelosi, who told us who Katie Tur was and said that when she was apologizing for Donald Trump, and she said, what are you, a Trump apologist? when she was talking about, well, Donald Trump did have COVID, and that's why his economic policies had us $7 trillion in debt when he left office. No, the fuck it's not. Right? No, it's not. And so,
You know, Danielle, Katie Tour was one of the 3 people that Michael Cohen mentioned were the.
and I was just about to say, so when Michael Cohen was testifying in the election interference, aka hush money case that Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts for, he said that when he was looking for positive stories to find their way onto air about Donald Trump, that he had certain people that he would reach out to. And guess who was one of those people? Katie Tour, that he said. And guess what wasn't amplified on MSNBC that week? The fact that Michael Cohen, who was a frequent guest on that network, said that very thing. So to then turn around after this, and what I'm referring to, the shooting, right? It was a shooting that took place. It was a shooting that took place at Trump's rally. Because guess what we don't have information about? We don't know if Donald Trump was actually shot, which many are saying he was not. That the bleeding that we saw was from glass because his teleprompter was hit, which leads me to believe that the reason why you haven't had a press conference with your doctors to talk about how heroic you are and how bionic your ear is because they take an oath to do no harm and also maybe not lie. Yeah. Right? And so here's the thing. When I listen to these folks say that Donald Trump was going to change his tone, that this was going to be a message about unity, Wash, how long did that last before he put up on his busted social media platform about revenge and threatening and all of that? So how long did the unity message work?
2 days, because on Tuesday night, Donald Trump on Truth Social, and here's an image of it, went back to his old ways. Radical Democrats, deep state, right, witch hunt, making other outlandish claims. That to me does not seem like a changed man. That does not seem to me to be a man who emerged from the throes of death. A man with serenity and who was very pensive and ruminated about his many, many mistakes and hyperbolic, incendiary comments. It seems like the same old Donald Trump that we have seen for the past 10 years, the same one who descended the staircase and talked about Mexican rapists and said very fine people on both sides and told Proud Boys to stand back and stand by, and who just 2 weeks ago wanted a military tribunal. Televised military tribunal for Liz Cheney that no one talks about, or the fact that he said he's be a dictator for a day, or the fact that him and Republicans have proposed camps and no one's talking about the camps that they proposed. And Mike Johnson says, yeah, it's needed. We need to deport. It was 5 million. Now it's 10 million. Now it's 15 million. Now it's 20 million immigrants. 20 million. Okay. You're just going to deport 20 million people illegally. What's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen to the mixed families?
What are laws, Waj, when you have absolute immunity? What are laws when you have absolute immunity? Yeah.
But Biden stuttered.
And he's 81.
He's 81. And the 78-year-old man who survived an assassination attempt and has bionic ears, and apparently what I've been told on now mainstream media, even as God's hand was in this and saving him, wore a giant diaper on his right ear, which for some reason that diaper was missing the day before.
Where was he? I'm sorry. Where was he following this attempt on his life? Where was he the day after?
He was healing himself on the golf course without the Band-Aid, right? And then he fell asleep. And maybe he fell asleep because he's undergone a traumatic shooting event. So that's why maybe, since we have 2 elderly men, one who's 81, the other one who's 78, maybe the American public deserves to know what's your diagnosis? What's your treatment? Are you healing? Were there x-rays? What was the severity of the injury? Was there stress? Let us know. You're 78. You fell asleep. But nobody except finally yesterday, Danielle, I don't know if you saw this, Michael Steele of MSNBC brought it out. And Michael Steele is trending right now because the right wing is attacking Michael Steele, saying, oh, you're floating conspiracy theories. And he's openly saying what I've been saying, what you've been saying for 2 days. Yo, Like, where's the hospital reports? Where's the medical reports? And the interesting thing, Danielle, is if you've noticed, it's the never Trumpers, the former Republicans who understand how MAGA is, who have been the ones in the past week who haven't fallen for it. They're
Yep.
not Charlie Brown. They've
Nope.
been on offense.
Yep.
Michael Steele, Rick Wilson, like all of them. They're like, no, don't get distracted. But everybody else bent the knee.
And all I have to say before we switch gears to talk about JD Vance.
Sorry, I had to hack.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Before we talk about JD Vance is this, which is that we should all pay as much attention to the shooting at the Trump rally that Donald Trump gave it, which is that, again, quote unquote, attempt on your life, but you're on the golf course the next day. You're on the golf course the next day. And while Biden tried to call the widow of the person who lost their life at the Trump rally, whose wife decided not to answer the call because her husband wouldn't have wanted that, is still waiting
No,
for
he
Donald
finally
Trump.
called as of
Oh,
yesterday,
yeah?
apparently. It
Oh,
took a couple of
good.
days.
It took him a couple of days and a call out by the media. But guess what? Joe Biden did what presidents do in times of trauma and grief. And he made the call. He made the call right away. And so it just goes to show you, again, what is in these people's heart, that even in their moment of grieving, they find it that they want to own the libs. Good for you, lady. Good for you. So let's talk about the announcement of JD Vance. And the fact that when I audition for a job, aka an interview, I usually want to speak to the person that had the job before, to get some insight and intel into what I'm getting myself into. Do you think that he called Mike Pence, or you think he just left
You
that
know what?
alone?
When I found out it was JD Vance, I said I might have tweeted this. JD Vance's family and friends, pray for him, because that last one, he was thrown to the wolves. The last one literally ran away from near certain death because Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection. And some of his followers came there with the purpose of assassinating Mike Pence for not being loyal enough, for certifying the election and not going along with the coup. And Donald Trump encouraged that assassination attempt. So I wonder what Donald Trump will do to JD Vance, the man who in 2016 didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Nope.
It openly said that he is America's Hitler.
Yeah.
Said that all the people who vote for him are idiots. So I think he should have addressed the crowd as, hello, idiots, I'm here. And the funny thing is there's two things here with JD Vance. It shows you how corrupt and craven and spineless the entire GOP has become. You can literally turn on a dime on your ethics, on your morals, on your rhetoric, but as long as you bend the knee and kiss Trump's ring, you're absolved of your sins. That's a cult. Secondly, he is a man who's the most inexperienced person to ever hold this office. So all these right-wing people are talking about DEI hires. He is the quintessential DEI hire, Danielle. And one last thing I'll say, which people aren't making the connection, is he is a venture capitalist, multimillionaire, one percenter, Yaley, who's friends with billionaires, backed by Peter Thiel. And who did all the billionaires this week all of a sudden publicly support? Elon Musk, Anderson, Thiel, and also one other individual, Ackman. They supported Donald Trump. So that's another angle that people haven't noticed. That JD Vance pick is I think a merger between Trump and the billionaire class that I got one of your boys here who called me America's Hitler, but that's okay.
So one of the funniest memes that I saw was JD Vance apologizing for calling Trump America's Hitler, and then saying, "But thank God you took it as a compliment." So here's one of the funniest things that is happening right now since the announcement of Vance as Donald Trump's VP pick, which is that MAGA doesn't like his wife too much.
JD Vance also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names.
Nick Fuentes, who is a self-pronounced and known white supremacist, went on his platform and basically said, how can we trust JD Vance to uphold white identity when he has this Indian wife and these mixed race kids with Indian names? Legit said it. You're listening to the clip now.
So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist or something.
Replacement theory, Danielle.
It
the
is.
white supremacist anti-Semitic replacement theory that has inspired people to commit violence.
Yes.
Apparently, JD Vance, according to the base, is engaging in the replacement theory by marrying a brown. That's why also they didn't call her by her name. They said a brown, and having mixed race kids.
So the racism knows no bounds. It doesn't matter that this man, JD Vance, let's just run you a little bit of his record with the time that we have, which is he is so anti-abortion that he wants a full-on abortion ban, no cases of rape or incest. He wants a ban on no-fault divorce. He believes that women should stay inside of abusive relationships for the good of children. He thinks that abortion is an abomination. He thinks that LGBTQ people are an abomination. He wants to undo every bit of LGBTQ anti-discrimination laws that are on the books and roll that back. JD Vance is a person that is a racist. People say dog whistles. I say bullhorn. He is, as you said, craven. He is the future face of MAGA. And it is just amazing that when you taste power, how you will turn on your morals and your ideals on a dime. And is that the type of person that you want a heartbeat away from the presidency?
Danielle, he turned on his own family. He's promoted the replacement theory. And then Nick Fuentes, the guy, just, I think I tweeted this yesterday. I'm like, I want any reporter to ask this. JD Vance, how do you feel about Donald Trump dining with Nick Fuentes, who just mocked and ridiculed you and your family, and the fact that he has refused to condemn him? Have you had a conversation with Donald? Do you want to condemn him? Or Donald Trump, how do you feel that you dined with a man who just went on his platform and mocked you for choosing JD Vance and accuses you and JD of erasing white people? If I had access, I would ask this question. And, I hate saying this because speaking about the Browns, my peoples, no, I take that back. They're not my people. They ain't like us. Nikki Haley.
Come on.
Nikki Haley yesterday.
Yep.
Bent the knee. Vivek bent the knee. Both of them, by the way, were mocked and ridiculed, subjected to racism by Ann Coulter. And they sat there with the happy smile
on
they
their
took it,
face.
like, yes, sir, that's me. Tim Scott's fiance. I think there should be
Is she on a milk
announcement.
carton?
Yeah, she had a milk carton. She just vanished. She's like Homer Simpson in that meme. She went back into the bush. Look what they make you give, to quote Born Identity. Look at what they make you give, and look at what they'll make the rest of us give. If this is what they're doing to Republicans, Danielle, and this is what I tell to the conservatives, the people who are like independent, the people who don't like Trump but might vote for him. If he was willing to sacrifice Mike Pence, what will he do to you? And that's what dictators do. Dictators are only loyal to themselves, Danielle.
110%.
And everyone's forgotten, including MSNBC.
I want us to close with this today. As folks take in the news around JD Vance, as folks are beginning to brush away the amnesia that corporate media tried to have us succumb to following the shooting at Trump's rally, which is Project 2025 and the threat that it is to this country, to our way of life, to our democracy. Joe Biden, while the RNC Klan show was going on, went to the NAACP's conference and spoke. And he gave probably one of the most fiery speeches since his State of the Union. And this is what I'll say. And we should play the Black Jobs clip, because let me tell you, that was funny as fuck.
Here's what he thinks of black jobs. I love his phrase, black jobs. It tells a lot about the man and about his character. Folks, I know what a black job is. It's the Vice President of the United States.
That was solid. Solid line.
It was solid and it was good. But this is the thing that I will say, and then I want to hear your thoughts, which is that fuck these one-on-one interviews. Joe Biden needs to be in front of audiences. Joe Biden needs to be in front of people. That is where he gets his energy. That is where he gets his excitement. That is where he is most clear and most himself. Get him out of these bullshit one-on-one interviews with the Lester Holtz of the world and the Stephanopouloses of the world, and get him in front of the people, because that is who matters. Because when he is speaking to people, we know what he is about and what he stands for. And it was so clear. And the speech was so good. And I have to just say this again, pay attention to who is calling for Joe Biden to step aside. Pay attention to the fact that it is largely white, wealthy men who are saying this, or white, wealthy women. But do you know who is not moving? The base of the party, which is Black women and Black people. So why is that? Because they always know the way to freedom. They always know the way to justice. So if you want to get to that place, follow Black women.
Because they're always, like we said on the last show, they're the most strategic voters precisely for that reason, because they have the most to lose. So they put their own passions and their own whims aside for the betterment of the country, which is why it was Black voters who in 2020, when it came down to Bernie versus Biden, they did the strategic assessment and said, who will most Americans, including white people, vote for, and what candidate will give us victory over Trump? Biden. They went for Biden. Then the rest of us followed. And I think all this attempt by Nancy Pelosi, apparently, and Adam Schiff, and all these spineless, weak, I'm sorry, just elder white establishment Dems behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, to torpedo this guy. You have 3.5 months left. He has not exited the race. You have tried for 3 weeks. Let it go, to quote Frozen, and unite behind Biden and Harris. And it's not about cult of personalities. I agree with you. I think if he makes a message between democracy and dictatorship, it's between freedoms and MAGA, and you have Harris unleashed, I think that's a winning message, especially that you have 9 years of receipts. You have 9 years of receipts. You have receipts from this month before Trump got shot. Like, literally, he called the January 6th insurrectionists hostages. No one talked about it. He said he's going to pardon them. Isn't that big news? He refused to concede the 2020 election. He refused to say he'll accept the 2024 election. Just nonstop. I say, folks, go on offense. Don't bend the knee. Follow Black voters. They're the base of the Democratic Party. There's 3.5 months left. I agree with you. I also think, last thing I'll say is, if he rejects corporate media more and more, seeing the trend right now and seeing what I'm seeing, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, where people are just turning off MSNBC. I think he'll win over people. They're like, yeah, F them. Go talk to us. And use social media and non-traditional media and grassroots. Have the media kind of turn on Biden. And I think it'll rally the base like it kind of rallied MAGA in a strange way in 2016. Go to the people. That's what I say. And I agree with you. He's done Holt. He did Stephanopoulos. They don't give a shit. They're not changing. They're not agile. F it. F it. You don't need them. Go to the people.
Thank you for listening to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
And I'm Wajahat Ali. I'll say matter of factly, and I am Wajahat Ali.
And we will be back next week, if in fact we have a country left. Inshallah.